Good everyone, welcome to this video, and today we have a premium review on the He-112 B2U2. Now, of course, this is a marketplace vehicle, and I will have to do this a little bit differently, so I had to do some digging as to how much this aircraft actually costs. So, this will change depending on when you obviously view the video. If you view it when it first comes out, it'll be around 7 Gaijin coin. I don't know what the price will be in the future, and I'm going to base my review off of the current price tag. So if you're coming from the future where this thing costs like 4 Gaijin coin, it'll obviously apply differently. But of course, if you do want if you do want that answered, if this aircraft is available for 4 Gaijin coin and you don't really have any rank 1 German premiums and you want to pick one up, this is definitely one I'd suggest. So the He-112B2U2 is an aircraft that appears to have a very peculiar flight model. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, this is just a 112B1U2 with a fancy Romanian skin. But it's not. This aircraft appears to have a flight model of a 112 from 2016. Now I know some of you may not remember those days if you've not played that long, but remember, I started in 2015. I know exactly that flight model like the back of my hand. The 112 was actually the aircraft that got me into air realistic, like fully. I started playing the B0, and that one was the one that got me into air realistic properly. And after flying this definitely gives me that sort of memory back, you know? Like, it gives me back those old days that I've always remembered. Now, I'm going to obviously be basing my review on the current price tag, which is around 7.06 Gaijin coin. I personally wouldn't buy it at that price unless you're a collector and you've got it by grinding the events and pretty much getting this thing for free. Um, but if you can get it for about 4 Gaijin coin, which it could potentially if it gets mass released in a box again, um, I would suggest that because at the end of the day, it's chances are you're not going to be getting that much Gaijin coin from selling this vehicle anyway. And even if you do not happen to get this thing from a vehicle box, it's only going to be around 4 to 7 Gaijin coin from its lifetime, because the lowest I think this thing's been at is like 390, and that is a very good price, but at the same time, you've got to remember you could get a rank 2 premium for that. So it's all down to what you look for. If you want to relive, if you're a veteran of War Thunder and you want to relive the old memories of the 112's flight model, I'd suggest it thoroughly. But if you're a newer player and you are looking on the marketplace for a marketplace vehicle, I wouldn't personally advise this one, if I was to be brutally honest. So let's go over the guns, the performance, and everything else. So starting off with the guns, we have two 20mm MGFF cannon. These are not amazing, but I have been trialing air target belts and they seem to work. But if I was you, I'd stick with stealth. But of course, before you do go with stealth, do make sure to learn the guns. These are very low velocity cannon, and if you're using stealth and you miss every shot and you're running stealth, then that's on you. You should learn the guns because I'm not going to be showing you how to lead the guns, and this review is to pretty much give you a basic example of what this vehicle would be worth if you got it at the marketplace or in a vehicle box. Then we also have two 7.92 MG17 machine guns with 500 rounds each, totaling 1,000. The armament is bad for 2.3. The problem is I don't see why it should be 2.3. Same as with the B1U2, I personally don't see why these are still stuck at 2.3. Now this one, it's only because it doesn't get played much, because hardly anyone has it anymore. But it's a catch-22. The B1U2 and the B2U2 pretty much, performance-wise, are the same, except this one's a little bit different, which we'll go into the engine as to why. But even then, the difference between the B2U2 and the B1U2 is negligible. These things should be 2.0, same as the B0. There is no difference in these aircraft that warrant 2.3, especially with the power creep nowadays. So let's go over the engine, and you'll notice something different. If you look at example at the B1 U2, you'll notice it's a Junkers Jumo 210E 12-cylinder inline with 697 horsepower on WEP, of course. But then you look at this engine, the Junkers Jumo 210G. Whilst it has slightly more power on 100% by about 26, the takeoff power is much more considerate at 726. This is a horsepower gain of about 29 to 30, and in a light airframe like this, that makes a pretty good difference for the most part. In a dive, you're not really going to notice it, but in acceleration, you're going to feel it at least a little bit over the B1 U2. As a result, this is personally the best 112 in the game right now, but that doesn't mean much when you get into a 3.3 match. That's the only catch, which you can and will get into a lot. Now, over time, this aircraft has changed flight model-wise, and it doesn't feel exactly like the 2015 or 2016, flight model. It feels a bit more weighty in the tail. I think they are trying to nerf this thing because people are starting to buy this thing, it would seem. And I wouldn't be surprised if this aircraft becomes like the B1U2 with just a little bit more power. So this review may be considered out of date in the near future because when I was getting footage for this thing, it felt clunky. It didn't feel how it should. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's go into the battle and let's take a look at the He-112 B2U2. So remember, the price of this aircraft is around 7 Gaijin coin at the current time of this recording. This may increase, this may decrease, it depends. After all, the marketplace is differed by its availability of stock. It's like in business. When when demand is greater than stock, prices increase. That's just how business works. And as a result, you have to apply the same principle to this aircraft. So, in terms of climb, it's a little bit better than the B1 U2, but I literally mean by about another 100 feet a minute. There's not a huge difference. And as a result, this is certainly something that you're going to have to learn, because remember, you're at 2.3. If you get up to it, you can fight stuff like F4U1Ds. And that little extra climb rate isn't going to help you much. Let's put it that way. So one thing I noticed on the enemy team is that there's actually an A7HE1 on the enemy team, and I wanted some 112 on 112 violence, but unfortunately that was not going to happen. Now, for anyone that's curious about belts and gun convergence in this match, I was running Universal on the 7.92s. I was running air targets on the 20mm because I was testing them because stealth was being a bit iffy on this day. And I'm also running 400 meters convergence. That is important because the MGFF auto explodes at about 400 to 450 meters. So coming in on this J11, who's actually going to be rather smart about it, I don't really have a good shot. I do score one cannon hit and a couple of MG hits, but he immediately turns around to engage me, which is the smart play. But of course, I have more speed than him, and I decided to go for the Fokker D21 that's engaging my friendly. Of course, you can see what I mean by the tail feeling a bit clunky. This thing doesn't feel how it should. Back in the day, I would not have had that issue pulling out that dive. It would have been like a 0 at that speed. But no, I think they're nerfing this thing over time. So I decided to engage the Key 27. Whilst he was combat ineffective, he was still important. That's going to be my second kill. Now I'm going for the A5M4. I score a couple of cannon hits and quite a few MG hits. I score a few more MG hits, but then I'm taking fire from the rear. there's a J11 behind me. The cannons hit their mark and blow the A5M4 out of the sky for my third kill. The J11 goes down after my CW21 teammate manages to deal with him, and it's at this moment where I can begin ground pounding. Now the 112 wasn't exactly a stellar aircraft in this role, but it is certainly capable, especially at the majority of ground targets that you're going to meet at this BR. At this BR, the worst you'll encounter is a medium tank on an up tier, and even if you somehow meet a light pillbox on one of your maps, you can kill those with the MGs. Those are not important. Those are not a problem. In this map, we have artillery, AAA, armored cars, AAA trucks, and also light tanks. You will be able to kill light tanks with your cannon, but you'll have to have stealth to do that, and it's very tricky to line up on target sometimes. So I initially thought about going for the two remaining aircraft, the S-81 and the C-200. But eventually, after seeing the I-16 start to farm, I decided against that. Purely because I figured, what's the point of climbing when there's a CW on him? He's not surviving a CW for very long, and that does turn out to be the case. So the S-81 has just gone down, and I decided to start on the ground pounding. Now unfortunately, I don't have a very good approach angle for the armored cars, but I do have a good approach angle for that AAA truck, so I managed to pop that. I do have a little bit of cannon left, but it's negligible at best. For ground pounding, don't use your cannon if you don't have to. Use your MGs, you get a lot more ammo, and they can take out the majority of ground targets at this BR anyway. And if you line up on target properly, you can get a run like that. That was 6 vehicles in one run. So it's all about positioning your aircraft ready for a ground attack run, and this thing can do rather well at that. It's all about positioning. Of course, sweeping back around to finish off the last armoured car. I do fire a little bit of cannon just to see what it would do, but it bounced off, did no damage, so I decided to just finish up with the MGs. The CW is very soon going to kill the C200, and that will be pretty much it for the end of this match. Of course, we've got to pop a AAA gun first, haven't we? Or two. Because no one likes AAA. Especially Harry Pete. So, what do I think of this aircraft? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, I think it's a solid aircraft. But at the same time, I think they're nerfing it. Purely because it doesn't feel how it should. Last time I flew this thing, it felt exactly like 2016 He-112. Nowadays, it's pushing into the modern 112 flight model. So on that basis, it's really down to its current price, and of course this will vary depending on when you view this video and you decide to buy this aircraft or not. If it's anything higher than 6, I wouldn't. Anything less than that, consider it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video on the He-112 B2U2, and I'll see you all on the next one.